Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Somos Mas, the official podcast of Somos Mas NM and your source for the latest news and notes on New Mexico United and the New Mexico Runners. My name, of course, is Seth Bidoff. Joining me this evening, no Jacob, no Earl, no Christina, no Harry, but we do have a fantastic guest host this evening, the one and only David Weesey Carl from New Mexico United. David, thank you so much for hopping on the show tonight. We've got a number of things to get to, but we did have a quick chatter over here tonight saying hopefully we're not on that SKC Indy 11 delay.
Yeah. Pulling hard for Indy 11 tonight. They could be in CONCACAF by the end of the evening if they ever play the match.
If they do, Indy, I know that match is set to get started a little over 2 hours ago now. Yep. Still in some sort of a weather delay over there. I do have it pulled up so that hopefully during the course of the evening, if we get a score, we'll have some sort of an update for you guys. But yeah, as you mentioned, CONCACAF is a very real possibility for a USL Championship club this year.
Yeah, and we'd like to just say everybody who is planning on watching SKC versus Indy, come on over to the podcast. That'll be pretty much the same viewership as always, right? We have about 15,000 live, something like that should be good.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. So yeah, if you're there in Indy or Kansas City, actually, waiting, please come on over. Listen to the pod. We'd love to have you in. So Josh, I know this has been a talking point over the past several weeks. I did not have this planned out. So David was a late join for the pod this evening because the other guys and gals could not make it this evening.
I'm the fourth backup.
So there you go. Didn't they need LAFC to win for a semifinal win?
Oh, I didn't notice. Did LAFC lose?
I don't know. I didn't look. We can look.
No, hold on. Open up. Oh, okay. So LAFC plays Seattle tomorrow. So we won't know until tomorrow.
But hey, an Indy 11 win puts them right in the conversation. So, absolutely exciting moment there. But no, I picked this. The reason I haven't been wearing it, I know it's been some discussion, is that let's be honest, I gained weight. Okay,
join the club.
And it's been tough. So I've been on a process to lose the weight back, and I can now fit back into my kids. So there we go.
Health is wealth, my friend. Health is wealth.
That it is. You and I both ref, and we've done a number of different, tournaments and things for Duke City up at the soccer complex. You and I talked about. I hurt my foot last year. I've finally been able to run. I've been running for the past 6 weeks pain-free. Nice. So good things are happening, being able to hopefully maybe get out here in the next week or two and start reffing again.
Well, when I come on the pod, you wear United stuff. And when I come on the pod, I wear a hat for the NL East leading Philadelphia Phillies.
Didn't you guys just lose a series to a team from Atlanta?
There's another one coming up next week, so we can make that up. And we just beat Houston for the second straight time, so we're going to win that series tonight.
There you go. Yeah, always happy to see Houston lose. But yeah, the Major League Baseball is interesting this year, and I do want to talk to you about this just a minute. It's not something we talked about prior to coming on, but there's a lot of storylines going on this year. Obviously, the Braves have dealt with a number of injuries. There have been other teams that have dealt with injuries as well. I mean, who do you see coming out of this thing? I mean, the Dodgers have had an up and down year. I know local fans are not happy with the Dodgers play, but there's some interesting teams in the mix.
Yeah, if I'm trying to be as objective as possible, I think the Dodgers are the best team in the National League and the Braves are the best team in the American. The Braves. The Yankees are the best team in the American League. There's a couple close behind, right? In the NL, you could say the Phillies. In the AL, you could say the Orioles. You can throw some surprise teams in there like the Royals. They've been really impressive in the Central. If you're going chalk, obviously it's LA and New York, which is any Major League Baseball executive's dream, right? The two biggest markets facing off in the World Series. But I think we should know by now that very rarely do the top teams in each league meet in the World Series, right? So, Atlanta's going to make the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to get healthier right around playoff time. So they're going to be a tough out. The Phillies have been a 500 team, unfortunately, for the last 2 months after being the best team in baseball for the first few. The Dodgers, I think, are the most consistent team in baseball, and nobody mashes taters quite like the Yankees. So those are the teams I wouldn't want to face if I'm in either league. So if you're telling me I got to bet the farm, I'll probably take the Yankees this year, as much as I hate to say it. But you never want to count out a Shohei Ohtani team either.
Yeah, the Dodgers, you just watch what Shohei Ohtani is doing, watch what Aaron Judge is doing. I mean, there are certainly some impressive feats going on
50
this
homers
year.
each already.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're not even to September, and you're looking at Shohei possibly being 50-50.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think you could see probably a 60-50 out of him if you ask me. But it's, and I don't know, but I mean, again, I don't necessarily think of Atlanta as small market, but compared to say LA, New York, it is.
I mean, payroll wise, they're smaller than the Mets. And the Mets are terrible. So, and Justin, I agree with you. I barf every time I think about the Yankees too, but they're damn good at baseball. So, as much as I will say, I think that Atlanta in Philadelphia, I would take their rotations against anybody when healthy. Mm-hmm. But again, just the ability for New York and LA just to absolutely mash the ball all the time. It's difficult to beat. And, you can take an Aaron Nola and a Chris Wheeler and a Ranger Suarez, and they're great pitchers, right? They're all Cy Young candidates. But when you have to face, potentially 7 times Aaron Judge and company or Shohei Ohtani and company, that's tough.
Yeah, so definitely some dangerous lineups out there. And admittedly, I've not been paying as much attention to the West as I should have. I did not realize just how close the NL West is.
Yes.
Padres and Diamondbacks both within 4 games back of the Dodgers. So I know they've had their struggles. And, I mean, they're all basically a shoe-in to make the playoffs at this point. But realistically, we still have a month and a half of baseball left.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I mean, you got some close races in the NL West is the only close race in the NL, but I will say the Braves have made it a heck of a lot closer than it was. It was a 10-point lead for the Phillies, and again, they've been playing mediocre baseball lately, and the Braves have cut it to 6.5 right now. The Braves are playing right now. Is that right?
Yep, playing the Twins. They're up 4-3.
4-3. So 6.5 games, potentially down to 6 games by the end of the night. That's the second closest race in the East. in the National League, and then you get to the wild card, which Diamondbacks and Padres potentially are both in, which leaves the Braves looking a little scared right now.
A little bit indeed. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch that race coming down. The NFL season's kicking off. Man, there's so much going on right now. And I have been reminded by my girlfriend to ask you. I'm going to the East Coast in about 2 weeks and flying into Philly. Do you have any food recommendations?
Are you going to be spending a little bit of time in Philly?
We're looking at our options. We may spend like the weekend there, or at least a day down in Philly.
I'm biased, but it is my favorite city. If you're looking for the best cheesesteak in town, which I think everybody typically is, you could go to the touristy places, which are Pat's and Gino's, and those are fine. Like, they're good cheesesteaks. But the best cheesesteak in town is D'Alessandro's. Highly, highly recommended. It's very much like a deli feel, but it's very fast-paced. Know your order when you get in there, kind of like the soup Nazi. They're going to yell at you, but absolutely worth it. It's the hoagie roll is like a sesame seed. It's so good. D'Alessandro's best cheesesteak in town. That's my favorite. If you're looking, my favorite bar in the entire world is called Frankfurt Hall. It's in Fishtown, Philadelphia. It's kind of like a German beer hall. You walk in and then there's no roof. It's all open air. Get a big old stein of beer, great pretzels. Highly recommend that spot too. So those would be my 2 recommendations.
Very cool. I know she's listening in. I've got those written down, so we'll certainly look and see what we can do. And those sound phenomenal. She's talked about getting me a cheesesteak while I'm out there. I've never had a true Philly cheesesteak. And you and I talked about this a couple years ago when we went down to El Paso. Talked about a cheesesteak place near the stadium, and it's left a lot to be desired.
Yeah. I'm not going to get a cheesesteak outside of the tri-state area. I'm just not. I went to Andrew Bolte and I went to an Eagles Broncos game 2-3 years ago at Mile High, and right around the 50-yard line on the concourse, there's a cheesesteak place. And again, there's more Eagles fans there than Broncos fans because the Eagles fans travel well and the Broncos weren't having a very good season. And we walked by it on the concourse, and the line is only Broncos fan. There's not a single Eagles fan who's going to touch that thing with the 10-foot pole. So, I've been looking for since I moved here 9 years ago for a decent cheesesteak in Albuquerque, and I haven't found one.
Well, there you go. We got some suggestions here over the chat. David's Philly Foodcast.
Absolutely. I'll show you where to get the best water ice.
Best water ice NG.
No. Water ice. Water ice. WOODER.
See, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I have no idea.
It's how we pronounce water.
That is a common thing between my girlfriend and I, because she says it similarly. So she probably knows exactly what you're talking about.
Is she from the area?
Yeah, she's from Quakertown.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, she gets it. She gets it. Reading Terminal Market, too. Any nationality of food you could ever possibly imagine. Reading Terminal Market is incredible.
There she is. She's over in the chat right now.
Hey, there it is. Melanie gets it.
Yeah. So yeah, so we'll be out there I'll be out there in a couple of weeks, spending some time with her. And so, appreciate the suggestions. If you're ever in Atlanta, I can certainly, give you a few places to go as well. So
I will take you up on that. I like Atlanta.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I can't wait to get back. Hopefully I can get back before the end of the year. But we're not here for the Foodcast. We're not here for MLB Cast or anything else of that nature. We're here for New Mexico United. We are here because we've got a lot of things to talk about. And the first and foremost, I do want to mention before we get deep into the news, Makwele Kale named a Team of the Week once again this week. So congratulations to Quelle. He's been quite impressive. I mean, all season long, but here in the past few weeks, especially, he's done a tremendous job for United. David, talk a little bit about Quelle behind the scenes and what he brings to the club and what he's doing so well from your vantage point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the field, off the field, two different things, right? Off the field, incredible attitude, super friendly guy, goes out of his way to say hello when you're around. And obviously you love that. Really, really great, warm smile, that kind of thing. On the pitch, you go by training, and man, this guy loves free kicks. It's crazy. He likes free kicks like I like cheesesteaks. He's after every single training session, he's out there at the end hitting them from 25 yards, 30 yards, whatever it is. And it shows. It shows. I mean, this was his first goal of the season. This was his first goal, not from a set piece all season. But it kind of shows in the doggedness of him. Eric Quill talked about after the match that he is such a two-way player, right? He puts in just as much effort getting back defensively and pressing defensively as he does towards scoring goals, towards getting those free kicks, all of that. And I mean, no better example than the goal he scored, the only goal that was scored in that match against Colorado Springs, which is immediate defense turning into offense, right? It was great pressure along the left side. I think it was Marco who was pressing along the left side that forced the pass that Quelle intercepts and steps around the goalkeeper and slots it. By the way, that's a really tough angle. That's like an impossible angle almost.
I've seen one other goal from that angle, or a very similar one. It was Joseph Martinez.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, right? Everybody thinks, oh, he did the hard part by going and cutting off the pass, getting the ball. And he did. But it's hard to get around the keeper, and then it's even harder to finish from that angle. I mean, there's so much skill defensively, offensively in that one play. And again, that doesn't happen without a hell of a lot of effort. Quelle's a great guy, but he's a hell of a footballer too.
Yeah. That he is. He's certainly been a welcome addition to the club this year. Obviously, he's become a fan favorite. I think he's right up there with Brucey at this point. And, you and I are at the matches, week in and week out, and we see how late these guys stay signing autographs. And most typically is Brucey and Quelle, who are among the last guys out there every single week. And, you hate to tell people, sorry, you got to go, but the players have to go home at some point.
And I can tell you, when we do the post match, and for those who don't know, we'll let you know on the kind of the background here. After the match ends, usually it's Ken Sickinger, Seth, and myself. We go down the steps and then up the tunnel to the dugout where we do post match interviews. And we've got usually folks from KRQE and KOAT and all the other folks there with us, but that's the route we go down. Everybody gets set up in the dugout, and then I go grab coach and two players for post-match interviews. I can tell you, fans get so upset when I take Quelle and when I take Brucey. Those are the ones where, and don't get me wrong, they don't want to lose anybody, and they love these players. But when I grab Quelle and when I grab Brucey, every single time there's just a little kid who's like, no. And I have to tell them, they'll be right back, and it's fine. But I do feel bad taking them away from that.
Smashing children's dreams. That's what David does on the weekends.
There you go. That's what I do.
Not the only news of the week for the club. Last week, the city council handed down the verdict on the final appeal for the stadium, voted against the appeal, so in favor of the club by a vote of 8-1. So everything appears to be headed towards the stadium. Now, there was an interview that was done and posted by a member of one of the neighborhood associations, I believe it was, stating they may pursue legal repercussions on this or pursue legal options. I mean, what does it look like for the club going forward? I mean, do you think these guys really have a leg to stand on?
Having a leg to stand on isn't a requirement for filing a lawsuit. I guess is the way I would put it, right? We're very confident in the work that we've done, from the team side. Otherwise, the EPC, the city council, and the LUHO all wouldn't have approved it, some of those multiple times, right? They're in charge of making sure that process is filed. And so we've gone through the process. We've had, by the way, 14 meetings, with neighbors and with community members and all of these kinds of things. So we're very confident in the process that we filed, that we followed, excuse me. I wouldn't be surprised if they file some legal action, and that's okay. We're prepared for it. We're not going anywhere. We're working hard, and we're going to continue to do all the right things, follow all the rules, make sure that this is a collaborative process, because ultimately this is something that is going to be great for all of New Mexico. It's going to be something that people are proud of. It's going to be something that gives people something to do on the weekends, that makes people want to stay in New Mexico because we're growing and we're building. I mean, we are a growing community. That's a good thing. We need facilities to support that growth. So we're really happy about what we've done so far. If there is any sort of kind of a suit filed, we'll be ready for it. We'll be ready to go.
So one of the things that continues to pop up on social media is the funding and who's doing this and who's doing that. And I know that we've talked about it privately. We've talked about it in the press box. We've been to the pressers. Me and Jacob and Earl, we've talked about it on the podcast. Now, most of the people here are typically in support of the stadium. We've invited people on the show to talk with us about this, and no one seems to want to take us up on it. So, but the club has been very vocal about where the funding is coming from. The club is footing the bill.
Yes.
For the stadium. Now, there is some public funding that's going into the infrastructure of the surrounding area, but this is not taking away money from other things. And this is, I think, where a lot of the misconception is that the public is funding the stadium every dime.
No, not a single dime, actually. So yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The entirety of the vertical of the stadium is going to be privately funded, 100% of it, not 90%, not 75%, not 50%, 100% of the vertical of the stadium is being completely privately funded. The piece that is public funding, and again, we've talked about this a lot, is, let me give you an example. Let's say, Seth, tomorrow you wanted to go start a hotel. You wanted to create a hotel. You were going to build a hotel. You need to purchase the land from whoever owns it, right, in order for you to do that. You're not going to set up a hotel without having land that has access to electricity and gas and water and things that you need to run a hotel. It's the same thing with the stadium. So we are leasing the land from the city, and that lease is already signed and approved. They are using infrastructure dollars that were allocated, some of it up to as long as 4 years ago, to improve infrastructure at Balloon Fiesta Park, which has been sorely needed for a long time anyway, right? So that means improved electricity and gas and water lines that can be used, by the way, at the biggest event in the state every single year, Balloon Fiesta, which improves the experience there. Permanent bathrooms that can be used at Balloon Fiesta, which again, it's been sorely needed because we have 1 million people coming to Balloon Fiesta Park for that event, and they use porta potties. They're nice porta potties, but they're porta potties. So again, these are what the public dollars are being used for. The vertical of the stadium will be entirely privately funded.
And the city has come out and said that they've had plans for a public parking structure for years anyway. They've been wanting to do this, and so I saw an argument the other day. You talk about the lease. The club is leasing the land from the city, and I brought up this is similar to what the Isotopes did. Mm-hmm. The people that run the Isotopes are leased the stadium and the land from the city. The city completely owns that.
Yep.
And And the argument was, well, the Isotopes Park set Albuquerque back decades. Well, what do you mean set it back decades? That money does not come from homeless shelter programs. It does not come from public goods, from libraries, from schools. The money does not come from any of that.
I don't know a single person who would say that Albuquerque and New Mexico are worse off because the isotopes exist. The isotopes are a value add for this community. They provide entertainment for families, affordable entertainment for families, I might add. They provide a sense of pride, just like New Mexico United does. I mean, Isotopes Park is a great example of investment that has really benefited the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like you. I don't understand the arguments against it. It's not like, Jerry Jones shows up and says, "Hey, I want $1 billion from the city to build a stadium."
No, absolutely not. And I never want anything we do to be compared to Jerry friggin' Jones. The only thing I would like is maybe some of his money, but beyond that, no, the way he does things is not the way we do things. We're proud to be New Mexican. We're proud to, when the stadium is built, it's going to be a New Mexican stadium. It's going to have New Mexican food and New Mexican art and all kinds of New Mexican things, because that's who we are. Not because we're trying to appease anybody, but it's because that's the DNA of this club. That's who we are. It's what we do.
And the club has been outspoken about support for Balloon Fiesta and the balloonists and supporting the area. And again, there will not be matches played during Balloon Fiesta.
Correct.
The stadium location does not affect the balloonists in any way. The club has made changes to the design to reduce the noise pollution, the light pollution. So, I mean, let's say that our talk here does get out to people who do in fact disagree with the building of the stadium. What would your message to them be?
Yeah, I would encourage them to come to the table and let us know what their concerns are, and we can work collaboratively to solve those problems. That's what we've been doing. Again, we've had 14 meetings so far, and the results of those meetings are some of the things you just said, right? We extended the canopy on the west side in an effort to block out sound. And by the way that this stadium is built is into 2 embankments specifically for that reason, right? So on the west side will be the main grandstand and the canopy over there, so it blocks the sound escaping to the west, which is where the nearest neighbors are, over a half mile away. The south and the east sides are right up against embankments, so it blocks sound from escaping to the south and east sides. So the only place for sound to escape is to the north, which is uninhabited. That's intentionally done. This is not done willy-nilly. And a couple other things that I want to mention too that are really important is people are concerned about, hey, it's already tough to park at Balloon Fiesta during Balloon Fiesta. It's already tough to park at Balloon Fiesta Park. This project will actually have a net gain in parking spots by the time it's done. And then in addition to that, with regard to the lease, this is a 30-year lease. And at the end of the lease, this is something that we as the club decided to put in there. We are going to sell the stadium to the city for $1. We didn't have to do that. It was our way of showing that this is the community's stadium. This is the community's product. This is for the people of New Mexico. We're not looking to own this and make real estate money on it. We're looking to do the right thing and create something wonderful for the community.
Harry, appreciate the support over in chat. Welcome in, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Justin with a comment over in the chat, they could work on the food and drink affordability a little. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I believe that the food and drink prices at Isotopes Park are set by the vendors and their contracts with Isotopes, correct?
Totally, yeah. We have no control over food, drink at all. We make next to no money on the food and drink too. That's all Topes and the vendors, and they set what's going to be the menu and the price and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, obviously, when we have our own stadium, we can be as creative as we want with the menu and the prices. I know that Pete in the past has talked about having some sort of like a $2 stand where you can get like a hot dog for $2 or a taco for $2 or a small beer for $2 or something like that. So I really like that idea. And again, for me, the most important thing is going to be all New Mexican as well.
Harry, we don't disagree. We think that would be phenomenal.
I think it would be cool, but again, it's an agreement that we've made. And for those who are just listening on audio, Harry said, I think having a game during Balloon Fiesta would be an awesome experience. I think it would be totally awesome. But again, we talk about compromise, right? We talk about meeting people where they are when people have concerns. It's a legitimate concern to think, hey, we have this awesome event every single year that brings in all these tourism dollars. We don't want it to be messed up. Yes, that makes perfect sense. So how can we make sure that we are accretive to that? How can we make sure that we make that what we're putting in place is actually beneficial, is actually helping people. And maybe we'll get to a point 10 years down the road where Balloon Fiesta says, oh man, we'd love to have a game as part of the Balloon Fiesta festivities. We can talk about that then, maybe, but maybe we'll never get there. And that's okay too.
Justin, I was talking about the Isotopes side. I know United has no plan that. Well, maybe we can, direct you to Isotopes, head of concessions or something. I don't know. They probably have an org chart out on their website.
Big fan of the kettle corn. Love the
there
kettle
you go. More importantly, from Harry, getting a women's team in New Mexico. I know there's been a talk. I know there's also been, a rumor of the football tournament team coming up. So.
Oh, I haven't heard that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I was talking to David a while back, and
Estrada,
David Estrada. And there were some plans a couple years ago, but it just happened to fall on Devin Sandoval night.
I remember that one. Yeah, so we could let people behind the curtain on that one. Yeah, so Dev was going to be putting a team together. I think Estrada was going to be on that team. I think Bees might have been on that team. I don't remember who it was. Someone, and they were going to put together. Maybe it was Salih. I think it was Salih who was going to be on that team.
That one,
but it fell on Devin Sandoval night, which was the worst possible night for it to fall on because, you kind of got to have Devin Sandoval to have a Devin Sandoval night. Yeah. That I would love to see us get the football tournament team from here. That'd be awesome. Christina, a unified team would be absolutely incredible. It is something that we've talked a lot about. Again, we gotta get these facilities in place so we can do these things. The women's team for me that's the dream, right? That's we're going to do it. It just can't happen soon enough in my mind, right? I wanted to start, 5 years ago, but we're going to do it. And then the unified team is something that we're absolutely looking into. We've had conversations with other clubs that have unified teams. Colorado Springs is kind of a leader in that space. Colorado Rapids has a team as well. FC Dallas has a unified team. And they're all trying to kind of work together to create what would be kind of like a unified league, which would be amazing. I know there's been some conversation at the USL level. So that's all very preliminary, but I would love for us to have a unified team. Right now, we've done our United in Our Abilities clinic for the last 2 years, which has been absolutely incredible. It's for kids, whereas a unified team doesn't necessarily have that age restriction. But our United in Our Abilities clinic has actually been run largely by our academy players, which is so cool. They do training ahead of time to learn how to work with kids with autism and kids with Down syndrome and kids with physical disabilities. And they're just so great with these kids. It's been absolutely incredible. They are inspiring. And it's been a blast. So a logical step for us at some point when we get the resources and the space to do it, we absolutely want to do a unified team.
Dave, looks like some chatter over in our chat, trying to get you into our fantasy football league. You want to?
Oh, Lord. I'm already in 2, guys. I'm already in 2. You want me to get a 3rd? If you want to lose at fantasy football, I'll beat you. That's fine. We have a front office league, and I did a cameo where I got he goes by Almost Andy Reid, the guy who looks just like Andy Reid, and he goes to all the Chiefs games. I got him to randomize our draft order for us. It was kind of cool.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Yeah, we've got Somos Moss year 2 going. Earl finished dead last year.
What was the punishment?
We never decided on a punishment for that. I actually did it. Now, to be fair, it was a 6-team league, 8-team league, Earl.
6 teams.
Yeah.
How many teams make the playoffs? 2?
Everybody.
So the regular season is useless. Okay.
Earl came in dead last. I was the champion, so No, we've expanded this year. I think we have 10 teams now, Earl.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That's a good number.
Yeah.
If you've got 10, then I'm not hopping in. You don't need 11.
But yeah, so many things to talk about. Justin mentioned Open Cup about. So it looks like they are getting ready to kick off SKC versus.
All right, come on, Indy.
We will be keeping an eye on that as long as we are here. In the meantime, though, let's head back and check out the highlights from Saturday's match against Colorado Springs. And we'll talk about this. And one of the things that, David, I mentioned to you that I wanted to talk about was the fact that we have a Zico Bailey problem. Now, Zico has been phenomenal for the club all year long. Really, really good at what he does. But now we're in a position where Zico is facing the 2nd suspension of the season, due in large part to some very silly yellow cards on his part. And it's reaching a point now where Zico may potentially be almost at the discretion of the league what happens to him on future yellow cards, I should say. Talk about the decisions that he made a little bit here on Saturday. First of all, you see him commit the foul in about the 30th minute, and then pick up the ball and start to walk away with it. I mean, as referees, you and I both know you can't do that.
Yeah, and for me, as a fan watching that match, because it's the first year I didn't go to Colorado Springs for the game. There's Quelle's goal, love that. It's the first year I hadn't gone to Colorado Springs for the away match, so I was watching at home on this one. Watching him commit the foul, yeah, okay, fine, it's a foul. Watching him pick up the ball, I'm like, okay, but the problem is he's being told over and over again to put the ball down. The opposition players are coming to take the ball away, and he's continuing to pull away. And my assumption, and I don't know into Zico's head, my assumption is that he's trying to draw a card for them, right? He's trying to get them to shove him or something like that, and so he can draw a card for them. But I think at some point you got to realize this is more likely to go against me than it is to go against them. Mm-hmm. And the announcers, the commentators said it at the moment. He's like, after he got the yellow card, he's like, that could come back to bite him later. And if it does, you're going to look back to this moment and say, what were you thinking? Again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand where Zico's coming from with trying to draw the card. I just don't know that it was the smartest. I know that it wasn't the smartest decision that he's made.
Yeah, I get it. Watching it, I see the frustration with the foul. He thinks he makes a fair play on the ball. However, He does step into him, drops the shoulder or gets into him. No real play on the ball from what I saw. But yeah, it's all the afters that where it really gets him in trouble. And I think you drop the ball, move on, go about the rest of the night.
Keep complaining to the ref if you want. You can keep complaining. Just do it with the ball on the ground, because as long as the referee is engaged with you, the play shouldn't be allowed to start.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it came back to bite United. And again, the second foul, and I don't know if it shows it in the highlight package or not, but I felt the second one, and we can talk about this from a refereeing perspective, I didn't feel that was yellow card worthy.
I thought it was a foul. And I was fine with that being a foul, but based on the position, based on the intensity of the foul, based on the momentum of the play, which are the things you're told to look at as a referee, I don't see it as a yellow card either. Mm-hmm. Now he does hold up his momentum a bit to stop the play, which again, that's why I see it as a foul. But it wasn't reckless, it wasn't dangerous, it didn't stop a goal scoring opportunity. So I didn't think that it was a yellow. But again, you think back to the first one, right? You're putting yourself in a position where what you and I are talking about now is maybe an incorrect decision from the referee, which we're seeing right here on the screen, is now in play to remove you from the match. Whereas if you don't get that earlier foul, the earlier yellow, that's not the case.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Foul, yes. Yellow card, no. But in the conversation we were having in our group chat is, he's in the referee's mind. Mm-hmm. From those earlier interactions. It's just, you can't, as Harry says, you can't leave it to the referee to make that call.
That's exactly right.
And now, I guess to an extent too, I think there was a bit of makeup here from the referee in the second half, because this was a far chippier derby match, if you listen to the announcers, than
every 5 seconds.
Yeah. Than what we've seen in the past from these two clubs. And now I think this speaks a lot to, number one, we did not lose to them until 2021.
Correct.
We've also won the last two meetings in this series, and we had won every single thing about Weidner until 2021 as well.
Well, we hadn't won at Weidner. It's the first time we won at Weidner since the first game played at Weidner.
Yes.
So it had been a bit of a drought in that regard. So, I know that Colorado Springs does see this as a derby match. They don't like us, and not that we're particularly fond of them, but I think if you ask most people, derby, you ask most people, most United fans, I would say that they'd probably say Colorado Springs is their third least favorite team. I think that's how I would probably classify it. Phoenix 1, El Paso 2, Colorado Springs maybe 3. from a fan perspective. But I would be interested to ask Colorado Springs fans if we are the team that they hate the most. I think that might be the case.
Yeah, that would be a very curious question to ask. I don't know that I've ever had the opportunity to talk to outside of a couple folks. But yeah, no, it was an interesting match. It was far more physical. I think it speaks to how much Colorado Springs has changed over the past few years. They have greatly improved that roster, even with, and I want to ask you this too, and we'll get to it here in a second. They loaned out, or they transferred out Malik Foster, your second leading scorer.
That's a move you make when you're in 12th.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fighting potentially for a home field advantage in the playoffs. I mean, they're 5th, 4th, right on the cusp there. Sending out Malik Foster. This is the second time, by the way, this has happened for New Mexico United, the day of or the day before a match this season, where arguably, one of the best players on the team is sent to another team. It happened with who was it going to Louisville?
Goodrum.
Yeah, Goodrum going to Louisville literally the day we played Tulsa. So fortunate, I suppose. You wonder what kind of a role Malik Foster could have played in a match like that, where one goal was all the difference, and that guy scores goals, and he also leads the team in assists. So that's a tough one for Springs fans.
I mean, even without him, you've got Ronaldo Damas, you've got Zandy, guys with a ton of pace, and you could see it causing issues for us, which did kind of lead to a little bit of questioning of why Kalen, why you bring on Will, and obviously and this is something I want to get to eventually as well. But those are guys who are not necessarily the quickest.
Sure.
Now, I think Kalen has been far better this year than he was last year. I think he's closer to where he was 2 years ago prior to the injuries. But you watch him on Saturday night against Colorado, his positioning was phenomenal. And I think that, to me, was one of the biggest keys in shutting down Ronaldo Damas, who really did not get a good look the entire night.
Yeah, I think you touched on exactly what I was going to say, which is you can make up what you maybe lack in speed for some players in good positioning and good knowledge of the game. And Kalen has those things in absolute spades. Not that he's particularly slow, but he's not as fast as Tony Herbert, right? We know that. And that's okay. That's not necessarily the focus of his game, but the way that he positions himself and his knowledge of not just the game itself, but of the opponent. He knows Colorado Springs. He knows what Ronaldo Damas is going to do, and he knows how to set himself up for success. And by the way, as the leader of the team, set his teammates up for success and say, hey, step over to the left because I know this ball's coming through here, or hey, check back because this ball's going to go over the top. They're prepared for these things. Kalen's a phenomenal leader and a phenomenal player. And again, every player continues. I mean, every year, every player is 1 year older, right? So Kalen's not, 22 anymore, even though that's his number, but he adjusts his game and he makes himself invaluable to this team in so many ways. I love having Kalen out there. And you and I were talking about earlier this season, early on, where it's the first time in the history of this club that I can remember that we've had 4 really solid options at center back. Sometimes we've been lucky to have 2, and most of the time Kalen was the one, right? I mean, we had, we've just had guys who were okay, guys who were good, guys who were sometimes, a 7 out of 10, sometimes a 4 out of 10. Right now we have 4 guys who are consistently 7 out of 10 plus at center back, which is really, really a luxury to have.
Let me ask you this, and something that it's popped up in a couple matches now is the use of the concussion substitute. Now, the league is not very clear with how these substitutes are being used. And I know that there's some confusion as to the substitute rule itself when it comes to concussions. Now, Kalen was brought off at halftime due to a suspected concussion.
Which, by the way, we didn't know at halftime, as fans watching the game, that's why he was taken off. We knew we assumed it was some sort of like a knock, but we just assumed it was a normal sub.
Yeah, you saw that. You see the impact earlier. You see him go down, but he's able to get up and continue. And then he gets subbed off at halftime, and there's no mention of it at all, other than there was a change. Yeah, and now, to be fair, this broadcast team was a few minutes behind on announcing those halftime subs. But it really came into question later on when all of a sudden, the announcers, Colorado uses all their subs. They use all their subs. They're out there. They make the big switch, 4 players at once, and then they bring on a 6th sub.
Yeah, we were all confused. We thought the subs were done.
Yes. Do you think the league needs to be more clear, or they need to put clearer instruction to the referee and how this is communicated? Not only to, I'm assuming it needs to be communicated better to the benches, or the benches are able to say, hey, we're going to make a concussion substitute.
So sorry, go ahead.
I say when it goes out to the media and the broadcasters, no one seems to know that this is what's happening.
So another peek behind the curtain for those of you who aren't up in the press box during the games. We've had, I believe, only one concussion sub prior to this season. Mm-hmm. And it was communicated really well. My thought is that potentially this was something on Colorado Springs' end, communicating between the Red Hat, and I'll explain what the Red Hat is in a minute, and the broadcast team. So the way it works is when there's a sub, concussion or not, we're on the radio. So we being staff. So I'm up in the press box, Seth's a couple seats over for me. I'm getting the stuff in my ear. They're saying, hey, substitution for New Mexico United, number 22 subbing in for number 33. Kalen subbing in for Harry would never happen, but you get it. And then I relay that to everybody in the press box and say, hey, 22 for 33. Jules is in the broadcast booth. She's getting on that same radio, and she tells the people in the booth, so the PA announcer, the engineer who is communicating with the broadcasters, and lets them know what the sub is. Same thing with yellow cards. Same thing with I'm trying to think of what else. Subs, cards. That might be
stoppage time.
Stoppage time. Yep, that's another
hydration
one.
Breaks.
Yeah, all that. So that stuff is all communicated. So the one we had earlier this year was also Kalen, which that's concerning. But when that happened, the Red Hat told us in our ear, hey, we've got a concussion substitution for number 22. This is the player that's coming in to replace him. I assume it was Tony or Talon or somebody. Will. So that is communicated pretty well on our end. So my assumption is that in this case in Colorado Springs, the Red Hat potentially maybe didn't communicate that to the broadcast team, or whoever received that message on the radio didn't relay it to the broadcast team. That'd be my assumption.
Okay.
But yeah, because communicated to the 4th official every time.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was quite confusing because, again, the broadcaster spent 30 minutes saying, hey, they're out of subs, they're, whatever. And all of a sudden they're bringing on, and even the broadcast team seemed to be unaware of what was going on. So I had to go, I was doing my research trying to figure out, okay, what happened, but, and because this, and again, a rule that not many people know is that when we use a concussion substitute, the other team is then given an additional substitution window that they can use at any point for any reason.
An additional substitution window and one substitute. Mm-hmm. So if you have used 4 of your subs and you get another one, you could sub 2 people in one window. So that's an important distinction. You get an additional sub and an additional window.
Yeah. So it was, I made a copy, pasted the ruling from IFAB over in the Discord so that, people could see it. We have a number of people over in the Discord now, by the way, if you haven't checked it out recently. Are
they all complaining about camera work still?
Yes.
Cool.
Well, at least one of them is. Okay. But I did have some sternly worded comments for that person. Like, let's see these up. So and that's something that we'll probably talk about, later off air. But after the win on Saturday night, obviously we were, most of us were watching the finals from around the league. United finishes the week on a 7-point lead over Sacramento in the West after some results. Sorry, Harry. Late penalty over there. We were certainly rooting for San Antonio in that one. But as we look forward, 10 matches left for United. Some clubs have as little as 8. And one thing you and I were talking about before is there's no magic number watch over on USLchampionship.com.
I've got one in my head.
You do. So David, tell us, what is the magic number for United to clinch the playoffs?
13 to clinch a playoff spot. And so the club that we're keeping an eye on as far as what we would call the regulator to get us into the postseason is the club is Phoenix Rising, which is always fun. Love that. So 13 points, either gained by New Mexico or dropped by Phoenix. At this point, that team could change depending upon other results. Would get New Mexico into the playoffs at this point, and that's just for postseason. That doesn't mean home field advantage. That doesn't mean top seed in the West, anything like that. Those are all other numbers, obviously. But 13 gets into the postseason at this point.
Yeah, so very, very slim number there for United. I mean, we don't want to call it a done deal yet. 30 possible points still on the table for United. You and I were doing some math ahead of the show, and we determined United has another magic number to clinch a top 2 spot in the West. That number for United is 17 points.
Which is crazy to think about. It's only 4 points more than making the playoffs, but that's how kind of jam-packed things are after you get beyond the second seed. Because you go, number 3 right now in the West is Memphis at 39. It's only 11 points down to Orange County at 28, which is wild. But again, the team you're looking at is Phoenix because they've only played 23 matches. So you add 6 points, they're 27. That takes them to 33, which means the separation point between the 3 seed and the 8 seed in that moment is only 6 points, which is wild. That's wild.
It is wild, but compared to where we were just a couple of weeks ago, there is a bit of separation now between the top 2 teams. I guess you could say us and then the rest almost. But obviously coming down to the stretch, Sacramento, Memphis, they're going to be tough. Looking ahead, our schedule doesn't necessarily get easy. No. Over the next few weeks, like a couple weeks away, maybe look ahead to Miami a little bit as a gimme game there. But before we get there, we've got to talk about Oakland. Oakland is a team that historically comes on strong later in the year. They've got great ownership over there. They've got a really solid team. They're unbeaten in 4. They're on a pretty good run this year. I think their goal differential is a bit misleading.
I agree with that. And by the way, they should have won their most recent match. They got there absolutely should have been a red card given at around the 50th, 60th minute in that match. And obviously that completely changes the trajectory of that match against who was it the other day they drew with Memphis, right. So that was a great result for us. A draw was the best result for New Mexico. But ultimately, I think Oakland did get screwed in that match. By a red card that should have been given. It wasn't. It was a late tackle, studs up. It was a rough one. Gavin Glinton, head coach over at Oakland, former New Mexico United assistant coach. Great dude as well. Was texting with him after the game. Really, really like Gavin. And I like what they're doing in Oakland. They're a fun team to watch. I think they're, like you said, I think they're an underrated team. I think you can make the argument that they're a top 2 team, potentially the top team in the West. They're certainly fighting for that. And like you said, every single year that they've been in the USL, they've started off slowly and come on strong in the second half. They're the best team in the league towards the end of the season pretty much every year. And I don't know what's in the water or why that happens or something about the weather in Oakland around that time of year. But when you get into the fall in Oakland, the roots really turn it on for some reason.
So let me ask you this. When you look at Oakland, they obviously made a splash earlier in the year, signing Dom Dwyer. Comes in 7 appearances, 178 minutes. Really hasn't done much over there. But at the same time, you've got Johnny Rodriguez, who is playing lights out. You've got a roster that's got guys that we're familiar with. Obviously, we spend a lot of time watching the league. We're familiar with these clubs. Paul Blanchett, Hackashaw, sure. Babacar Ndiaye. Like, there's a lot of names that could be impactful in this matchup on Saturday, which, by the way, 4 o'clock kickoff. Yeah. So be aware of that. You watch this, you talk about them being exciting and dynamic. Obviously Johnny Rodriguez is the guy that everyone's going to point to. He is the threat. What makes him work so well?
Yeah, I think it's the dynamism of the way that they play. Oakland want to stretch you. That's the thing. They have a ton of speed, and they don't mind running down your throat. I think more so than pretty much any team in the West. They'll get the ball. If they pick up the ball at center pitch, they will be at your 18 in 2 seconds. And that could cause, as we talked about earlier, some matchup problems potentially for New Mexico. You hope it doesn't. But a guy like Johnny Rodriguez is incredible. I love Babu Karanjai. I mean, he's one of my favorite players in this league. I love the way he plays. I love the strength and physicality he plays with and has for years. I think that Oakland is one of the most dangerous teams in the league, and if we can somehow get out of there with 3 points, those are a massive, massive 3 points, and you got to think at that point you're really, really eyeing a top 2 spot at that point in the West.
You talked about controlling the midfield. Now, obviously, that's been a sticking point for United all season. You got Marco Micheletto, you've got
Sergio's been
Zico Bailey. Sergio has really come on, and I know we've talked about him, and we had the chance to talk to him a few weeks back, and he said it was a struggle, kind of a struggle for him, dealing with the injuries and coming back. But with Zico being out, who do you think steps into that role? Who has the ability to slow down what Oakland wants to do through the middle?
Oh, there's one name, and it's Nanan Hosu. I mean, he's been. If you told me today that I had to pick a player of the season, it's Nanan Hosu for me. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And when we signed him, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is interesting. He's going to be a good player. But I mean, he has been absolutely terrific and dynamic, and the speed is, for a guy his size, I don't think you expect that speed. And he goes into tackles with reckless abandon, not reckless, just without fear of injury. More so, he's so fun to watch. He's an Eric Quill player, I think, if I've ever seen one. And when you have guys like Zico Bailey, like Sergio Ribas, who love to be on the ball and drive forward and find those diagonal passes, you need somebody who's going to be able to sit in behind them and kind of be your pivot point, but also stop attacks. It just so happens that player also has the ability to drive forward as well when needed. I think Nanan Hosu has been absolutely terrific, and in order for New Mexico to succeed in Oakland this weekend, he's going to have to be on his game.
I have to say quickly, Jacob has been extremely high on Nanan Hosu all season long. We all have been. He's been phenomenal. I'm amazed he's not been sent off yet.
He's physical, man. He's incredibly physical.
Yeah, especially in that match against Tulsa. I'm kind of surprised that.
Well, yeah, the kind of shove down on the face thing. I don't know if you saw the tweet that Tulsa put out and then took down. They were probably right. But it was very physical. We'll say physical. Yeah.
Obviously, the club is going to be without Zico this weekend. Where do we stand health wise? Obviously, no Dayon Harris, no Christian Nava. And someone asked me today, well, how's Nava's recovery coming? I said, we're not going to see him this year.
Yeah, we won't see. Christian this year.
I said he's as far as my understanding is he started rehabbing, but the club is being cautious.
Yeah. So Christian is at training. His level of participation, I don't really know. I don't know if he's walking around the field or if he's, on the bike. I'm really not sure about any of that stuff. Obviously, Dayon is done for the year as well. Abu Danladi injured as well. He's been injured for some time. Beyond that, I know Harry had a little bit of a knock that kept him out the last match. From what I understand, it's not particularly serious. And hopefully he'll be back soon. I hope for this weekend. I don't really, again, they give me about as much information as they give everybody else on the injuries, and it's fine. It is what it is. So overall, knock on any wood that's around you, I think we're relatively healthy, other than the ones that we've known about for a long time.
Yeah, we talk, and you and I, and we talked about the changes to the league guidelines and reporting injuries and all that kind of stuff, and fans are always going to wonder what's going on with who, what's wrong with this guy, why haven't we seen him? Now, obviously, we all know Talon had a child recently,
yes,
so he's had some time. We know Tony had some
family stuff he had to take care of. Yeah.
So people always, wondering, making sure, are they okay? Like as far as nothing's wrong with Talon, nothing's wrong with Tony. It's just they're dealing.
Nothing that I'm aware of on either of those fronts. Obviously we know that Brucey and Kalen both came out at halftime. So fingers crossed that they're both okay and available for Oakland. I hope so.
Yeah. Brucey clearly limping after what to me was a pretty serious challenge.
Yeah, the fact that wasn't even called a foul, much less. I mean, I went back and looked at the replay of that. You could make an argument that it should have been red, certainly yellow. But typical Brucey style, I mean, you saw in the play continues, and he's literally pulling himself by his arms with his leg dragging behind him, gets up, tries to run it off. And then you're watching this play, and there's no stoppage for like 4 minutes straight after that. And I'm like, oh my God, just kick the ball out of bounds, get him off. And then he stayed on through the end of the half. I mean, he's a warrior. You worry about him though.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And, I watched that play and I saw 2 separate fouls. I mean, you could have called a foul either way. Red card, last defender, potentially. I don't think distance
studs up from behind.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that one. How they got away with that one, I don't know. But yeah, Brucey, I mean, I worry about him. I know fans do as well.
You want to talk about reckless abandon. I mean, that guy will give up anything for this Shield. I mean, he loves this club. He loves this community. He loves this team so much. I think we're going to, in 10 years from now, we're going to look back at just like the legend that was Daniel Bruce. And just, man, he has given everything he has for this club.
He absolutely has. And I talked to him back in year 1 and in year 2, and he talked at the time about getting his coaching certifications. Do you happen to know like where he's at with that? Has he attained?
He's gotten some. I don't know what level he is at. I believe, I don't want to say the wrong thing. He may have his C license at this point. Okay. I think, but don't quote me on that. Even though we're on a platform that would be very easy to quote me on. But yeah, no, I know he's got at least some of the licensure. I want to say it's C.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and we know that a lot of the guys you mentioned it before. The academy kids get involved. The U23 is getting involved. The senior team gets involved with the younger groups and with the clinics and things like that. And you love to see the way that this club and these players have so bought into buying, to giving back to the community and spending time outside of training, doing these things. And people ask, well, is Bees coming back and all this kind of stuff. And I think maybe someday we will see Bees back in some sort of extent. I don't think we'll ever get rid of Dev. I don't think we'll ever get rid of David or Brucey. I think they'll always be involved in some way, which I think says a lot to, number one, how Troy started things back in year 1 and the continued efforts of Pete and the rest of the front office and the Somos Neos Foundation to continue to build this club up and continue to support the community.
Well, and Eric too. I mean, it didn't stop with Troy. I mean, Zach carried that on, and now Eric. I sat down the other day, and you can check it out on the United website. I sat down the other day with Itamar when we announced Eric's extension, just before we announced it, but after it had been signed. And Eric and I did kind of an in-depth interview. And towards the end of that interview, he talked about just what the community means to Eric. And Eric talked about it a little bit in his conversation that we posted on social media too. It's, this has become home for him and his family. And he talked about a specific time last season where he was walking off the pitch and it was a disappointing result. And he was expecting the boos and the, go home and all that kind of stuff. And it was support. And it was, thank you for what you're doing here. We're going to get him next time. We're building something exciting. We're building something special. And he said it was, in that moment, he knew this is where he wanted to be and he wanted to bring titles here. I mean, if that doesn't make you feel good as a fan and let you know, like, the influence you have, he's here because of that, because of that moment. And I'm sure dozens of moments since then. So, he helps carry that on too. And the coaching to the technical staff, guys like Nate Walzer and Luke Sanford and Matt Watson and David Estrada. And these guys, they care deeply. It's not just about winning titles, even though that's a big, big part of it. And that's what they want to do, but they want to win titles for the community. And that's a really exciting thing to have. And I think a pretty rare thing to have.
Yeah, we really hadn't talked about. That was the other big news of the week. Coach Quill getting the extension. I know it got a lot of attention last week, and I mean, honestly, it really kind of felt like a no-brainer. Given the results last year, the accomplishing the near impossible, getting United into the playoffs with the razor thin margins that we had, the points gained since he's come into the club. Obviously there was smoke, at the end of last year, early this year, about him possibly moving on to elsewhere. I mean, talk about the significance of now inking him to an additional 2 years. And him, because I mean, obviously he's going to be in demand.
I think he's already in demand, right? I mean, like you said, we all saw last year on social media, like FC Dallas needs a new coach, and this year, right? And Eric obviously has ties to that organization, and I can tell you as a fan, like I didn't like seeing that. I didn't like seeing that at all. So when I heard that we were tying him down to a 2-year contract, it felt good for several reasons. The first one being the obvious one, right? We get to keep him here. He's been terrific. Statistically, the best coach we've had from a numbers perspective. The culture that he's instilled here, the players fight for him, the fans love him, like all of those things that are very obvious and we know. But then the second thing is, if MLS does come calling, which I hope they don't, but if they did, they have to pay to take him. And then we can reinvest that in the team, and we can, whether that's for another coach or for whatever. I don't want to think about that. I want to think about keeping him here for 2 years, which is, by the way, it's 2 years after this season. So it's actually like 2.5 years from now, or a little less than 2.5 years, which I'm really excited to keep him here as long as we can. Because like you said, he is going to be in demand. He's an incredible talent. He's a great guy. He's, from my perspective, he's awesome with the media. He's welcoming. He's warm. He just gets it. And whenever you bring in a new coach, we've done it 3 times now. You think about, is he going to understand what it means to represent New Mexico? Because that's different than coaching at, I don't know, pick your team, Seattle Sounders or Montreal Impact or Blue City. Not that those, no shade to any of those clubs, but it means something different to represent New Mexico. It means something different here. And like I said, you're bringing in this new guy, and Eric, from outside of the ecosystem, and you're thinking, is he going to get it? Is he going to understand what we built here and what matters? He gets it. He absolutely gets it. And he wants to get it, and he wants to be part of it. And he is. He's become part of the fabric of the club. And again, it's rare to find somebody who is so bought in the ways that he's bought in, and also has the talent that he has. It's incredible, and we're so lucky.
And I can tell you too, from a media perspective, and obviously, you're at all the pressers and everything. He talks to us in a way that Troy and Zach never did. Troy and Zach were very close to the vest with a lot of things, which I get. And we like to, liken it to the Bill Belichick school of press conferences. But
hey, at least they wear sleeves.
Yeah. But with Eric, he's very forthcoming with information. Sometimes to your detriment.
Yeah, it's like Pete. Yeah. It's like Pete. You get a little Pete leaks, you get a little, although Eric has been great about not leaking, and I appreciate that. Yeah. And I loved Troy and I loved Zach, and they offered just different styles, right? And Bill Belichick happened to, as much as I hate to say it, probably the best NFL coach of all time. He was good for a reason, right? And so kind of the playing things close to the vest may have been part of that. But you mentioned Eric. The way I look at it is he's having a conversation with you, right? It's conversational. It feels less like an interview and more like when you ask him a question, he's like, yeah, here's what I think about that, which sounds basic and sounds simple, but in the world of coach speak, it's not. And so he does that in a way where he walks a fine line between, for the most part, because if you go too far in that direction, it could be just giving away all the secrets, right? He doesn't do that. He doesn't, say, oh yeah, this is who I'm starting on Saturday. And, this is our game plan. Obviously he knows that. So it's a maybe a delicate balance, but he's done a great job of walking that tightrope.
Yeah, that he sure is. We've had some questions. It's been, or not really some questions. It's been a minute, but we've asking for some David leaks or some David teases.
Okay, let's see. I don't plan these ahead of time. This is why I don't come on the show.
I will say you and the social media team confused the crap out of Earl last week. With the candle.
Oh, so that was funny. That was all the social team. And I did not know that we were doing a teaser for candles. It's cool. I like them. I like the clean sheets one in particular. It's my favorite of the 3 cents. I did not know we were doing that. And so I saw that posted and I was like, what the hell is this? It's like, are we doing like an ofrenda? Is this a vigil? What's happening here? But the candles are cool. I like the candles.
Earl was convinced we were signing a candle maker.
So yeah, a player with a last name like Candelaria or something.
There you go. I mean, you and I have, and I think it's safe to say, we obviously have a lot of conversations that the general public doesn't know about. We talk in the press box, we text back and forth. We've talked, the club is in the market. I think that's, pretty well out there. Coach has said it multiple times. And we know that as the season's winding down, if we are to bring someone in, there is a requirement that if they're to be eligible for the postseason, they have to play at least 5 matches.
We're getting close to that.
Yeah, we're cutting it awful close. I mean, and you've told us before, where your wishes are for this club. Is there anything in the pipeline that you can kind of give them a tease about?
I'm not aware of any signings that are in the offing. If that's the question, I don't know of any of those things. That's not to say I would know, right? They may not tell me these things. I typically find out about those things with just enough time to put together what we need to announce it, right? Yeah. Which again, we talked about playing, things close to the vest at times, all that kind of stuff. So that's not to say that there isn't. I'm just unaware of it. If you're looking for a David, I can't give you a leak. I can give you a tease. It could be a leak, I guess. There will be one more jersey coming out this season that hasn't come out yet.
There we go. I know people like kits, so I can't wait to see what else. I was really kind of hoping that's what was coming last week.
Was it a jersey?
I was hoping it was some sort of a kit reveal. I thought that would have been neat, but that's when I saw that it was a candle thing. I was like, okay, I get it. Like,
they're cool candles. They're cool, but it's not a kit. I get it. Yeah. But yeah, we will have one more kit before the end of the season.
Oh, there you go. And as everyone in the chat knows, David does not do predictions. David's been on the show before, so that's why I've avoided asking him his prediction for Saturday's match. But I will ask you this before we get out of here, David. Looking at the schedule this weekend or this week around the USL, obviously there's some big matchups. You've got Colorado, Memphis tomorrow night. Obviously us and Oakland on Saturday. When you look around the league, who are you watching on Saturday that's not United?
Yeah, it's a good question. One that jumps out at me is Detroit and Hartford, and that may sound weird, right? Detroit's been good all year. Hartford's coming off their biggest win of the season, winning at Louisville. And I talked to Brandon Morris, who I'm sure you remember from his time at New Mexico United as the director of operations here. He's now bigwig over at Lou City. And he was upset about some refereeing decision. They got a red card early on that he felt was incorrect. We'll say incorrect. So anyway, Hartford coming off their biggest win of the season over Lou City. And right now, as it stands, they're the last team in the playoffs, and they got to go to one of the toughest places to play in the USL, which is Detroit City. And probably my favorite atmosphere other than New Mexico that I've been to in the USL, which is at Detroit City. So I'll probably tune in for that one. It starts an hour after ours, so I'm sure I'll miss the first portion of it. That's at 5:00. Our match is at 4:00, like you said before. But if we're looking Western Conference, tomorrow's match, Colorado Springs and Memphis, is going to be a good one. And an important one, right? Colorado Springs, like I said, trying to get into the top 4 with the possibility of hosting a playoff match. Memphis is there right now, and Colorado Springs is chasing Memphis. So that'll be a big match for each of those teams. Much like Memphis and Oakland last week, the best thing we can hope for is a draw there.
Yeah, a number of great matchups. Obviously we've been big fans and we've been following the progress of Rhode Island FC in their inaugural season. They've really turned things around from where they were early on. Currently sitting 7th in the East. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that match on Saturday. And then there are 2 more late matches coming up this weekend. Orange County, Vegas.
Yes.
Playoff implications there. And you got FC Tulsa and Switchbacks on Sunday.
Yeah. And I mean, Vegas has been so good. They're scary. They scare me. I think they're the only team in the league this year that has beat us and Louisville. So that's an interesting little tidbit there. So Vegas is a team that will be very, very scary and a very difficult out in the postseason. They have turned it on. Yeah, I'd be super interested to watch that match as well.
So I saw a thread over on Reddit, and again, you and I have spoken. I know your Reddit name. I don't know if you've seen this post, but there was basically a prediction thread over on USL Pro saying that there are potentially 2 clubs that may not be here next season.
I saw that thread. Okay. Yeah.
I know some people believe the Miami FC will no longer be around.
Right.
I've seen some other names thrown out, Loudon, which I don't think is going anywhere.
I don't think that could. I mean, they've invested so much recently, and they're independent, and I don't see that.
The other name that really surprised me, given the way this season's going, was Las Vegas.
So I saw a few names floated around in that thread, and far be it for me to speculate. I don't know any of this stuff, but I saw Las Vegas. Harry, I saw San Antonio floated. That seems crazy to me. Both Vegas and San Antonio seem crazy to me. I saw El Paso floated. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
I have no idea at all. Justin says Vegas going MLS. I mean, people have said that about Vegas. People have said that about Phoenix. People have said that about
Sacramento, San Antonio,
Indy, all of these teams. So it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, someone said, and it's Reddit, so consider your source, right? But saying one obvious and one less obvious. So I don't see it being San Antonio. I don't see it being Las Vegas. I don't see it being El Paso. By the way, it may not be happening at all. For all we know, none of those teams could fold, right? Miami might not. I hope they all stay afloat. I mean, we're adding new teams to the championship, and we're adding a ton to League One, by the way, in the next few years, which is a really positive thing for the growth of the ecosystem. And my hope is that as we continue to add teams in League One, it leads to promotion relegation. That's my hope. That
is the hope indeed. And you're talking about expansion, coming in over the next couple of years. One of my concerns though is with the expansion, we need more teams in the West.
Yeah, the West keeps creeping further east. But here's the thing. Here's why we don't need that, Seth, is because if we don't add more teams in the West, that means if they ever do, New Orleans comes in, they get to be a Western Conference match, which means we get the best away day of the year in New Orleans every single year. It can replace San Diego, which was the best away day.
Yeah, New Orleans would be phenomenal. And yeah, do you think inter-conference play goes away once the league expands a bit more?
I hope not. I really hope. I love interconference play. I mean, you remember it used to be that way.
Yeah.
And I think when we added interconference play, first at kind of a very light level where we played some of the teams, and then more so when we play every single team in the East, either home or away. It just adds a different level of dynamism to the league. Right before it was just, we'll play all the West teams. We know them all, blah, blah, blah. But then, cool, we get to play Louisville. We get to play Tampa. We get to play Charleston, these teams that are historic and they've been around forever. And, because the East tends to have the older clubs for the most part. It's fun. I really enjoy when we get to play Louisville every year. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy when we get to play Tampa every single year. I really enjoy when we get to play Rhode Island now. These are really awesome things, and they provide for also some really cool away days if you can make it out east.
Yeah.
I hope interconference play never goes away. I think fans like it, and I think it's fun.
I agree. I think, as you can see over in the chat, we love interconference play. Yeah, I think it has done really well, and I think it does expand the viewership and the fan base for pretty much every single club. And I think it provides us an insight, because we struggled, the first year that we did it because we didn't know the Eastern Conference clubs.
Right.
But yeah, you look at the teams that have been announced: Brooklyn, Sporting Jacksonville, Lexington SC, Milwaukee, if that ever happens, right. USL Arkansas, Buffalo, which I don't know, maybe Iowa, but that one's been talked about for years now.
Yep.
New Orleans and Palm Beach. So.
And don't forget Jacksonville in there as well, right?
Yeah, Sporting Jacksonville. Yeah, Sporting Club Jacksonville. So
yeah, and that's you don't know. The thing that makes it tough, right, is you got all those. What was that? 6 teams, something like that.
8,
9. So you have all these teams. You just don't know at this point what level each of them are in their development, right? Mm-hmm. Is New Orleans in next year? Is New Orleans in? Because New Orleans was supposed to be in this year initially. Mm-hmm. When's Buffalo going to happen? Is Buffalo going to happen? Brooklyn. I mean, you don't know when these teams are joining in, so it makes it really tough to speculate about what are the conferences going to look like? Where's the split going to be? All of these different things. I would love nothing more than if all 9 of those teams joined in next year. And then, you have, I think there's something, I want to say it's like 7 or 8 teams joining in USL League One. The AV Alta looks like an awesome Antelope Valley. They're going to be great. Like if those teams can, like AV Alta looks like they're ready to go next year. Like they have their staff hired. They came out to the Open Cup match in LA and cheered with us. It was awesome. Check them out if you get a chance. They're going to do big things. But if you can add those League One teams and you add those championship teams, again, maybe this is me being, Pollyanna, but I really don't think Pro-Rel could be that far away. Again, I'm not in those conversations with the ownership groups or anything like that. It's just, maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. But if you have that many clubs, why not create the ecosystem? Why not?
Yeah. Well, we also forgot Energy. OKC coming back.
They're back. That's right.
At some point. It looks like 2027.
I think there's rumors they're going to change their name. Is that right?
I've heard that rumor as well. So who knows about that? But yeah, Pro-Rel will be awesome. I know there was an interview recently with one that came out, I believe it was on Backheeled, where apparently
everybody should subscribe to Backheeled, by the way. It's terrific coverage.
Yeah, it really is. John
Morrissey's incredible.
Does a phenomenal job. Where they were talking about, it's basically the same handful of governors that vote against Pro-Rel every time it comes up. So I don't know what, I think obviously the league would have to present a structure to, it would have to be, similar to what the Premier League does in terms of a balloon payment. If you drop, clubs have to be willing to do that. You also have to have the investment from the lower league clubs, people, continuously putting in the money, which I think is where some of the issue is going to be.
So in my opinion, here's where, in my opinion, the biggest issue lies. Think about the Premier League, the English Premier League, and think about the USL Championship. What's the biggest difference between those two leagues? It's the dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the dollars coming from in the Premier League? Media deals.
Media.
Yeah. I mean, the vast majority, obviously owners are investing, hundreds of millions of dollars in players and things like that. But as far as where the money comes to support the clubs, right, to subsidize the clubs, it's coming from media way more than it is tickets, way more than it is jerseys and merchandise. It's media deals. So until there is a media deal, this is just my opinion, until there's a media deal that can really contribute financially to these clubs, I don't know how you're going to get those governors potentially on board.
Yeah. Speaking of that, in December 2023, it was announced that the Premier League agreed to a record $6.7 billion domestic TV rights deal. Now that is only within England. That does not include the Peacock coverage, or
the Premier League is also huge in Germany, and it's huge in Korea, and it's huge in Africa, and it's so all these other places, the Caribbean, South America. Like people watch the Premier League all around the world, and that's only a tiny little sliver, a small little island. So yeah, it's interesting. So USL, Justin says USL needs Apple to come in. I did enjoy their coverage. The Open Cup, when we played the Open Cup match that was on Apple TV. Yeah, I loved the halftime show. I loved that coverage. It was really, really well done.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why ESPN got away from that type of stuff. Golazo does a great job.
Golazo is incredible. I love what Golazo does.
Yeah. It's kind of a pain to get Golazo sometimes, but
yeah, you got to go. I go through the Paramount Plus app and go through that. But yeah, I think that what Golazo does, as far as like the coverage, that's the biggest benefit of Golazo for me. It's not the eyeballs on the screen, even though that's great. I love that. But it's the additional coverage, the fact that, you have these analysts who are names talking about the USL Championship at a desk at halftime, and also not during matches, right? And just, random Wednesday at 10 a.m. or, 5 p.m. when you get home from work, they're talking about the USL Championship. That kind of coverage and analysis is what's needed. That's huge. It gets additional eyeballs on the league from people who otherwise wouldn't be watching it. I love what Golazo has done.
Yeah, all good things for the league. Always, the league is always looking for ways to get more eyeballs on it. They've obviously announced other media rights deals, international deals, and you see things happening within the league with the friendlies that we're getting, with the friendlies that other clubs are getting, the tour, the tours that we've seen of the Premier League clubs coming through and playing FC Juarez. Like, it's all designed to help build the league, build these clubs up, and just further the growth of it, and potentially, maybe D1 status at some point.
That's the dream, right? D1 status and a promotion relegation system. We can hope.
That we can. All right, David, I feel like we've taken up enough of your time this evening. I'd ask, where can people find you? I don't know if you want people to find you.
Not on Reddit. No, I'm on Twitter for now. We'll see how long. At David_M_Carl. I think I have a Threads account. I think people are moving over to Threads, right? That's what people are doing.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have any integrations for it. So
you can also follow the Duke City Gunners, Arsenal supporters group here in Albuquerque. If you're an Arsenal supporter, come watch at Tin Can Alley with us. By far the greatest team the world has ever seen, Arsenal FC. But yeah, no. Also, just find me at a match. I'm usually out there wearing a jersey and yelling at you on a microphone. So thanks for coming out to the matches. Thanks for supporting. Next one's going to be a good one. It's Fiesta de Nuevo Mexico, and if you want, again, maybe like a little leakage, a very important familiar face will be making an appearance at that match.
Well, there you go. So take that for what you will from David as some leakage for the next home match. So just have to wait and see. So David, again, thank you so much for joining us. We certainly do appreciate you hopping on, especially last minute, and spending some time with us this evening. I know I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. It looks like our chat has enjoyed the conversation. So, I think you are now the all-time guest appearance leader on the show.
You're going to get some shit about that.
I just might. But,
yeah. Well, always happy to come on. Thanks for the fun chat as well, everybody in there. And also check out Seth's coverage on ESPN, Radio 117, the team's platforms. Usually posted on Twitter. It's great stuff. If you get the chance to check that out.
Well, thank you, David. Certainly do appreciate that. And let's see if I can do Jacob some justice here. So everyone over in the chat tonight, Justin, Christian, some guy named Earl, Harry, Christina, who else is in the chat? Did I miss anybody? We got Justin, Harry.
Mug Def.
Yeah, that's Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we learned Big Jeff's name. Yeah,
Josh.
Yeah, I can't forget Josh, of course, early on in the show. Melanie, thank you so much for hanging out. She does listen, and she's picked up quite a lot. She's quite knowledgeable now. So,
well, enjoy your cheesesteak when you go out there.
Yes, certainly looking forward to that. And to our overseas listeners, Shadow Wolf, thank you for listening and tuning in and watching United and us every single week. We do appreciate that. So thank you guys all so much for being here. Earl, you are not crashing anything tonight. So again, United Saturday, 4:00, Oakland Roots on the road before they return home. Podcasts will be up on your podcast feeds later this week. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, all those fun things. Help us get the information out, particularly about the stadium. Hopefully, maybe we can change a couple minds about this. We do have some great information at the top of the show. Christian's overseas. Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, wow. From Korea. We were just talking about Korea.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for all of us, for Jacob, for Earl, for Christina, thank you guys so much for listening in. Until next time, Somos Unidos.